Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on big data opportunities for pharmaceutical companies. We have a lot of great information for you today and quite a few presenters, actually. So I'm going to go through an agenda and give you an idea of what you can expect today. Before we go into that, I would just like to say if you have any questions throughout the presentation, on your GoToWebinar panel on your screen, you'll see a little box that says questions. We ask that you log them digitally through there as they come up, and then at the end we will read them aloud and answer them all. And there'll be plenty of time for questions, so please ask anything that might pop into your mind. So just a quick rundown of the agenda for today. We're going to start with the characterization of big data and examples of current applications presented by Dilip Fadnis, who is the Director of Market Research here at Alliance. Then we're going to go into the payer needs and collaborations that are underway, which will be presented by Dr. Joel Auerbach, who is VP of Health Policy and Strategy. Then Joy Gupta is going to do Pointers for Success, and he is the Project Director. And then we will pass it back over to Dilip, who will do future developments and give you an idea of the rundown of exactly what we're doing with this project and everything that's included. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Dilip.
Okay. Thank you, Art. Welcome to everyone for this webinar on big data. This is a very exciting topic. We're doing a big project on it. We're all enjoying working on it. And what we're finding is that all the stakeholders who are involved in big data research, big data analytics, big data use, they're all traveling up the learning curve together. So be it pharma companies, be it payers, providers, others, everyone is kind of learning and feeling their way and experimenting and traveling up the learning curve and getting comfortable with this new technology that we have. And even the analytic companies, the consultants are all weighing in. And this whole technology is developing in step, and all the stakeholders are learning and applying things as they go along. So it's developing in the process. And I'm very happy to note that everyone is very cooperative. We met a lot of people during this project and talked to many people. And everyone is very helpful, very cooperative, because we all know that we're in this together, and we're all trying to learn and apply these technologies to various endpoints and goals that we have. Big data means different things to different people, and although this term does exist and is well known, some people agree that some people don't agree that it exists and use some other terms. But everyone kind of understands what big data is and where its applications are and all the potential it holds. Being that it is such a new technology, definitions are very scarce. So we found one definition, and I'm going to show that to you here. It's shown on the current slide in the last two bullets. But just to characterize it, big data is providing the granularity, the nuances, the confidence levels that is not forthcoming in conventional sample-based data. That is going to answer a lot of questions that come up to us all the time in talking about big data. So what is big data? Healthcare big data is a branch of healthcare informatics that pulls large and disparate data sets and applies a suite of mathematical approaches that derive associations, facilitates comparisons, and generates insights that are otherwise not possible using standard mono-source analytics. It includes, but is not limited to, reporting, dashboards, ad hoc queries, graphical displays, scorecards, predictive modeling, data mining, and business intelligence. The data sets themselves can be comprised of EHR data, insurance claims, be it managed care or others, pharmacy utilization, care management systems, consumer as well as government information, public health, survey-based data, point of contact information, and web usage. And the source for this definition, by the way, is Disease Management Care blog. So it's a very useful definition to have because it's an evolving topic and definitions are not that common. And we found this, and I think it describes the topic very, very nicely. So many stakeholders are directly involved in driving big data initiatives, each having their own specific goal. So if you look at the first top stakeholder, pharmaceutical companies, payers, insurers, healthcare providers are all working, they're all users of big data, and they're collaborating heavily. And we'll see more of the collaborations, but they're collaborating, glove in hand and trying to make more out of this data, trying to get some very useful insights for improving patient care and also reducing the cost of care. Secondly, many of the government agencies are involved in regulating this big data and making sure it complies with all the disclosures, all the HIPAA requirements, all the identification, de-identification requirements, and things like that. There are ACOs involved in this also, accountable care organizations. So that's the next group of stakeholders working in this field. And then the third group of stakeholders are the data suppliers and the data experts and the IT professionals. And there are very many of these people, and of course they're making a very valuable contribution in making all this work, in enabling us to work with this data, and they're providing the background, the support, the platforms, the expertise, and also helping the process along by their contribution in this manner. So starting with some information about big data, and what we're doing is, in the audience today, there are many, many people, and some are very new to this whole field, and some are very experienced. So we have information in all different areas. Some is very basic, some is very complex, but we're trying to build it up so that everyone has a good understanding of the approach we're taking and the information we're going to present. So in terms of the functions, each of the functions on the left-hand side that you're seeing is using big data, and it's contributing information and contributing requirements to the whole process. So you have R&D, health economics and outcomes research, marketing and sales, and marketing analytics. Each of these functions is contributing to these activities. So the activities are on the right-hand side: drug discovery and development pipeline and pipeline planning, pre-launch preparation, new drug commercialization, and ongoing marketing sales programs, post-launch surveillance, and things like that. And we'll see all the details of all these activities as we go forward. Okay, so a little while ago, you saw on the left-hand side the R&D function and their interactions and interface with various activities. So in the R&D function, we're saying that there are many applications, and they're pretty wide-ranging. And we've shown about 7 here, but there are many more. And as we do interviews with R&D folks and R&D executives, they're very open, they're very forthcoming in what they're doing and where they're applying this data. So we see this in supporting early-stage development programs, in clinical trial design and recruitment, in monitoring competitive product portfolios. And in monitoring competitive product portfolios, Google and some other consulting companies have made a lot of contributions, and they can expedite activities and do in 2 hours what was taking 20 days before in terms of portfolio analysis. So big progress in some areas. So we have also applications in pharmacovigilance, of course, very, very useful tool, in enhancing disease understanding and patient populations, and to shorten the research timeline, and also to monitor real-world drug use for product safety, adverse events, and medical adherence. When product safety, adverse events, and medical adherence, was taking a lot of time, a lot of manpower, a lot of costing, but because of big data utilization, these analyses are being expedited, and we're getting very good insights, very good results, very good findings with much less manpower required to implement these programs. So the health economic folks, of course, have been the first ones kind of to get onto this area and do a lot of analysis and use this for their work. So most of their focus is on elevating the standard of care to enhance patient care and reduce the cost of the care, because cost is becoming a big problem. So they're working with these two objectives and they're involved in predicting patient behavior to improve medical adherence, to predict disease progression so as to develop good treatment guidelines strategies. They're involved in reducing costly outcomes and through reducing hospital stays, ER visits, and getting a favorable positioning with payers for this reason. And there are many successful examples of this, and they're fairly well known, and would be happy to share that also with you as we go forward. Also involved in patient segmentation and linking patient to therapies and better targeting of therapies. And as you know, in many therapeutic categories like oncology, neurology, and treatment of multiple sclerosis, targeting is becoming very important. And big data is making a big contribution in this area because of the wide knowledge that exists in the guts of the big data. And of course, marketing for folks, as we know, are very competitive, and they've been very involved from the very beginning in trying to improve the effectiveness of marketing and sales efforts. And as you know, anything that can be done here directly goes to the bottom line and makes very quick contributions. So a lot of work is going on in this area, linking physician preference to prescribing to achieve efficient physician targeting and improve product messaging. Also, a lot of the social media data is going into big data pool, and a lot of sentiment analysis is going on. And this is also being used to use better and more effectively the various digital media options available to improve product messaging and to also do some hyper-targeting of physicians, which can yield very quick results in terms of its outcomes in sales and marketing effectiveness. Also, we're analyzing physician rep interactions, and this is also yielding very good results based by town, by zip code, by state, very actionable information, and it's helping develop more effective sales tools for handing over to sales and marketing folks. And in this way, big data is helping us do all these things better, more accurately, with more granularity, and being able to pick up all the nuances and things like that, and helping along in making big contribution in improving the productivity of the sales and marketing functions and efforts. And of course, a lot of pharmaceutical companies are working with payers in different ways. And I'm going to turn the presentation over to my colleague Joel Orbach now, who used to, about a year ago, wear the payer hat and was a payer, and has received many presentations on big data findings, big data insights from pharma companies. And he will talk to us about what do payers want from big data. And here's Joel. Joel?
Yes, thank you, Dilip. Clearly, big data is critically important to payers and the insurance industry. If we think about what's going on with healthcare delivery reform, healthcare financing reform, big data is really the fundamental engine that's going to make that work and make it be successful. You know, insurers are moving from being just simply a pay-a-claim company from several decades ago to truly going to helping to manage disease and helping to manage large population bases, both in terms of the actuarial risk as well as the clinical risk. So big data systems are going to be, and reporting is going to be a critical aspect of managing that type of clinical risk. I should also dare say, based on the President's news conference from just a couple of hours ago, I would say that just about every payer is busily crunching and would love to have a big data system that's going to let them know, so what is this change in direction going to mean relative to our financial risk. But in the long term, it just points out that payers clearly, as we move to all of this type of reform, having a robust set of data that ties all these disparate points together is going to be critical. Clearly, gaps in therapy. We're talking about segmenting patients for risk management, talking about benchmarking. All of that is important. I just will relate to one project that I was working on about a year ago or so in our team, where we actually looked, and again, a population of 1 million commercial members and a little over 100,000 Medicare members. We wanted to basically see who on a statin drug for cholesterol and who had coronary heart disease. Are there opportunities to see where there's gaps in therapies? Long story short, we could identify about 73,000 people with coronary heart disease, of which 41,000 of them had a history of statin, of which they were taking less statin than they should, less than 80% persistency. The analysis that our team did, again, looking at different disparate sources, were able to identify 7,400 of those that had a risk of having another coronary heart disease event over the next 5 years at a cost of $250 million. Again, you distill that down from that analysis, and it's not only $33,000 per coronary heart disease event, but $5,000 cost for every high-risk patient who isn't taking a statin at the adherence level that they need to. Well, how important is that? Beyond the methodology and all of the rest, suddenly now a health plan and a payer knows where they can target an intervention. They now have data to support what would be a collaboration with vendors, buying new technology to improve that, working with a pharmaceutical company, and looking at value-added processes to be able to budget and to be able to project where are we going to spend our resources and how. So that gives you, just as an example, kind of a very early example of how a big data approach can work. I think, again, if we can go to the next slide, the part of the challenges on this, and you can see here, we see a variety of different data sources that are in play. EHR, for example, electronic health records, looking at that, medical insurance claims, pharmacy claims. When we begin to pull all of that together, there's just a lot of data that has not really been brought together before. To be honest, what we're now seeing are payers who are really partnering with a variety of vendors out there to really help pull that all together. WellPoint, for example, has an agreement working with IBM with their Watson to become really the guru of this kind of big data. Other systems like Kaiser have used new computer systems, their Health Connect systems, to tie all the different systems together, and have already reported $1 billion in savings from reduced office visits and lab tests because of better coordinated care. Again, I think the hope and promise here is that nothing is off the table that can really help stratify, profile, and target where, in fact, a sales effort, where a care management effort, where a disease improvement effort can see. And I think this is where we'll see a lot of good collaboration opportunity ahead. Why don't we go ahead with the next slide? Which to say it was easy. Those of us on the payer side know that claims data is often I'll say not a good, and I'm being kind here, a piece of information. It takes a lot of work to scrub, a lot of work to understand what's good data, what's not good data. And the reality is it takes really trained people who have experience in this area to be able to make this work. You know, I think it's interesting is that we are beginning to train through a number of different programs people in big data analytics, particularly in healthcare and in pharmacy and specifically. So I think what we'll find is any limitations that we've had resource-wise, I would expect in the years ahead will be mitigated. And of course, you know, things change every hour and every day, and efficiency in the system and being able to be nimble to be able to add in and flex a program is going to be important. Let's go to the next slide. So what are the opportunities here? Quite honestly, it all boils down to value. Really to succeed in the years ahead with what's going on with healthcare reform, what's going to be happening with financing reform, what's really a transition of probably 20% of healthcare dollars to the accountability on the provider side through accountable care organizations and other large integrated health systems. Having big data is going to be critical for that success. So whether we are talking about data that's going to help I would say simplistically, how does a drug, where should it be on the formulary? A drug that will have, that may have a better value proposition that is evidenced by the big data reports, data that's going to help identify which physicians, which members, which clinics, which parts of a state or which parts of the country actually need to have additional resources to improve the quality of care. I think it will also, from a risk mitigation standpoint, help the pharmaceutical industry begin to more finely tune who's going to get a drug and the fact of the success with that drug. So we think about risk mitigation, we think about post-marketing assessment made much more efficiently and much easier in this particular process. And as I said, I think, and Dilip, you had mentioned it, and there are a number of examples out there where in fact there are these collaborations with the pharmaceutical industry and the payers out there, and subsequently with large physician groups to really pull all that together so that people have good, actionable, evidence-based information to make important decisions about health, and I think from the pharmaceutical product itself, important decisions that could really spell success for a product. Dilip, let me hand it back over to you.
Before we pass it back over to Dilip, a couple of people on the line have raised their hands. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to log them in the questions box on your control panel, and we will gladly address them in just a few minutes.
Okay, so I'm back on, and I want to make a very big pitch for collaborations. Big data is going to move on the wheels of collaborations. Collaborations are going to drive, and will have driven it in the past, will continue to drive in the future, the harnessing of big data. And without this, we don't think the progress will take place. So people have diverse expertise and different skill sets. Multiple disciplines are working together in this. There are different stakeholders who are involved in big data projects. So all these folks have to collaborate in a diligent manner, in the prescribed methods, in the prescribed scheme, and make this work. And a lot of collaborations are taking place. So the collaborations between payers and pharmaceutical companies are the most common, and they will continue to be the dominant themes. So between Humana and Boehringer and Ingelheim, there is a collaboration right now to improve healthcare and reduce costs for COPD, cardiovascular disease, and other chronic disease states. Between Humana and Eli Lilly, there is a collaboration for understanding different disease treatments, especially diabetes, see where the gaps are, see how current drugs are working, see where the opportunities are. There is a collaboration between AstraZeneca and HealthCore, and there is one between Merck and Geisinger, and there's another one between Pfizer and Humana for studying diseases in geriatric populations and drug use in geriatric populations. So what we're doing is we're taking these collaborations and analyzing them and seeing what the underlying themes are, where the opportunities are, what are the resources transacted, what are the motivations, what are the mutual benefits to be gained, and what are the anticipated outcomes. So we're going to have some very good information on pharma pair collaborations and other collaborations between pharma and other entities, and we'll give you very good guidance for forming your own collaborations. And as you know, the number of suitable payers or other collaboration opportunities are limited, and the earlier you get onto this game, the better off you'll be. So we'll clue you in on who to do them with, how to do them, and things of that nature. There's a lot more to come in big data. We're seeing just the beginning of this cusp, and here are some anticipated developments, and there are many more that are not shown here. So big data will become more efficient and useful due to better technology. This is very commonly accepted axiom. Pharma will change and adapt to the new marketplace. Big data will become more mainstream and distinctions will blur. Right now there is this feeling that big data is this big boogaboo and we have to understand it somehow, start to use it. This will blur and big data will become part of like everyday data handling because of the expertise, because of the facility in handling this data. And we're hearing stories from both sides. A lot of people are saying smaller companies will make very good progress in this field because they're nimble, they're not set with their current ways of doing things, and they will be very quick to move and do things and get things done very quickly. On the other hand, we're seeing big companies like the Mercks, the Pfizers, the Novartises, the Bayers, and the others who are also making very good progress due to their resources and their power. They're very organized, they've made a commitment, and they're making good progress because of the things mentioned just a minute ago. And we also have heard and feel from and have verified from experts that pharma will start to acquire big data content and platform companies. And we'll say to them, you're doing this now, do it for us now. So that is going to be one of the coming trends also. And we also find efforts were directed to getting the patients more engaged. This is the industry-wide trend, and big data will contribute to that. So that's another thing that we can look forward to. And we also find that application of information from social media will increase through techniques such as sentiment analysis. This is something that a lot of people are hanging their hat on. This will be used in new product launches. We've talked to a lot of people who are actually doing this work, and a lot to come from this area. There are lots and lots of other prognostications that we have in our project that we're finding, and this is therefore we find going to be an area yielding rich dividends in the future as years go by. So at this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to my colleague Joy Gupta, who is the project director of the project, and he'll speak for the next few minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Dilip. So I think what we've discussed so far is a lot of the opportunities and what's happening out there and the trends. But one of the things that we've heard when we started this study and started talking to experts and the stakeholders is the challenges. I mean, obviously we've seen that big data has a lot of components. There's a need to get this all together, unify it, integrate it. There are hardware and software issues. So in terms of executing projects with big data, it's a challenging task. So one of the things that we've tried to capture in this slide is, what do experts say when we ask them, what kind of recommendations or pointers would you have for pharmaceutical companies? And what we've reflected here is just a few. I think there'll be a lot more in the report. recognizing the realities on the ground and the complexity. One of the things they say is that, and this is for pharmaceutical companies, when it goes to payers, I think there are other challenges. But one of the things that they say for pharma companies is that, try to use big data in projects that are more for strategic and informed decision-making purposes. So in other words, try to stay away from small, projects that are based on hunches or trying to validate hypotheses and things like that. So, think through it, think through the discipline, think through the focus, and, use it in the right way. And the way to do this is to, for example, articulate your objectives. What are you trying to do? Do you have a revenue goal? Do you have a cost reduction goal? What is it that you're trying to do? So it's a discipline that they recommend that, practitioners use as they approach big data projects. They also say that based on these challenges, the conclusions that you draw from big data sometimes can be a little dicey. So they recommend that, vet the conclusions thoroughly, bring in the experts, bring in the stakeholders, make sure that the conclusions are reliable, and very importantly, they're actionable. Because you can actually go off track, again, because of the volume, the veracity, and the veracity of the diversity in the data set. They also recommend actually that to use big data successfully, you need to create an environment of success. And what that really means is that you have to bring in the right tools. The statisticians, the software platforms, secure them as you approach big data. Invest in educating the decision makers. One of the things they say is that some of the components of big data, a lot of the senior people are not very familiar with them. And when you spring it upon them, it comes as a surprise. They don't understand it, and they don't know what's going on. So I think some investing in educating, organizations up the line to show them what this means and what kind of value, you can derive from this. And excuse me. And they also say that, when you get findings, when you get insights that are actionable, are having an impact on the business, like any other venture that is evolving, try to showcase that and champion it so that that becomes a kind of an operating philosophy within the organization. They also recommend that, try to think through big data projects in terms of their complexity and size. And there is some information out in the industry to show that the very large projects which are more complex have a lower chance of success than, say, smaller projects that may not involve a lot of funding and resources, but probably are, at this point, maybe more successful. So think through that as well. Now, some of the collaborations that Dilip spoke about, they are very large. They are like marathons and they're not sprints. But I'm talking more about the what's happening inside the pharmaceutical companies. Which has its, their own needs. So these are some of the pointers and recommendations. I'm sure there'll be much more when we actually get into the report and finish the study and get viewpoints from all the stakeholders. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is basically describes our approach and the study design. It's basically a combination approach where we are really looking at what's out there in the public domain, and then combining that with somewhat akin to what you would call primary market research, which is basically qualitative interviews with a number of stakeholders that Dilip was referring to earlier in the presentation. And we are actually doing more than 100 interviews with payers and providers and the various functions within pharmaceutical companies. We are looking at industry analytical experts who have experience and expertise in handling big data. There are a number of big data experts, or so they claim, when we are talking to them, and we are finding out, what they feel and what kind of recommendations they have. And we are trying to develop a kind of a balanced approach, which is comprehensive, based on what's out there in the domain. Alliance executives have been attending some of the conferences, and we have a good archive of presentations made by some leaders in the industry. We're looking at those and trying to find patterns. So what we expect is that the result of this study, analysis of all the information that we're collecting, we'll be able to provide a document that kind of puts everything in one place. The opinions, the literature, the watch outs, the issues, in one kind of a single source document. And since Alliance is a consulting company and we're not allied to any particular side of the industry, you can expect that what we put forth is also going to be very objective, and it'll tell you for what it is. So that's what this project is about. I'm now going to hand it back to Dilip, and he has a couple of slides more in the presentation.
Thank you, Joy. So Joy talked to you about the project we're doing, and there are lots of questions that appear when you start working on big data projects and big data initiatives. And we have a lot of good information in our report that is going to be finished in December. And some of the other questions that come up that we're going to be answering are, what are the trends and motivations in pair and other alliances? What new opportunities exist in different functional areas for doing more big data insight collection? What new marketing applications are being worked on in other companies? What is the overarching strategy for big data adoption in pharma? Should it be a centralized approach where there is a common data warehouse that everyone kind of accesses? Or should it be sprinkled out throughout the organization? There are other strategic issues like that we're analyzing and exploring and making recommendations on. Then, what pair submission should we plan for? What should we incorporate in sentiment analysis and new product launches? What big data insights should we incorporate in R&D informatics? What new insight mining programs can we initiate in HEOR? And things like that. And the changes required in your organization to warehouse, access, and disseminate big data. So a lot of other information is being collected and will be incorporated. So we have a big project going on. There's about 8 people working on the project. So I'm the project leader. Joy Gupta, whom you heard from, is the project director. Joel Orbach, whom you heard from, is handling the pair viewpoints. Margie Florio is doing a very important component of contacting a lot of the experts, a lot of the practitioners, a lot of the pharma executives to see what they're doing, how they're feeling, what their insights are, what their experiences are, and reporting into the project. Charles Chicone is also doing some valuable interviews along the same lines as Margie. And Mohan Purushothaman, who is a well-known executive in the industry, has given the initial guidance for the project and is continuing to guide the execution and the implementation. And James Morgenstein is the Chief Technology Officer for Alliance, who is guiding us on technology issues. And details about the backgrounds of these individuals is in the project brochure. And the whole team is working very, very diligently and very well together to deliver a very fine product to the industry. So we have a project brochure available for containing additional information, and you can contact me to obtain that. My email address is shown there, and so is the telephone number. They had the address there. So that's the email address and that's the telephone number. If you need to obtain the brochure, I'll be happy to provide that to you. And that's the end of the presentation. We now go into the Q&A section. And in terms of Q&A, what I'm going to say is, this is still a work in progress. We have a lot of information, and we don't have some of the information. We're gathering some of the information. So when the questions come in, some we may be able to answer, some we may not be able to answer at this time. So with that caveat, I will turn the mic over to Art.
Thank you, Dilip. We do have a few people who did raise their hand, and I'm not seeing any questions from them. So if you raised your hand during the presentation, please feel free to submit a question now, and we'll be happy to answer it. With that being said, let me go into some of the questions here. With the example where an insurer identified thousands of patients at high risk for cardiac events, what happened next? what did the insurer do to help these patients besides pushing statins, any lifestyle change push?
Sure.
Sure. And actually, the result of that study did a number of different things. First of all, we wanted to test a number of different interventions, and so we actually created a fairly substantial, as part of the project, telephone follow-up compliance assessment with high-risk patients, and studied over a course of a year if that made an impact or not. We actually, as a result of this, identified, again, several thousand people for specific targeting, but also recognizing that identifying and coming up with strategies required really a multidisciplinary effort within the company. Our pharmacy program actually created a pharmacist of the day who was a part of the care case management group, and so that all the care case managers had access to a pharmacist each day to work with their patients to help identify it. And again, part of what the big data did is identify who the high-risk people were, but also gave justification for putting resource, putting effort to identifying and helping to close some of the gaps that it did. So there's a number of different offshoots that continue to be developed and launched through that plan because of that work.
Okay, thank you, Joel. We have another question here. Who are the leading partners in providing the EMR arm of the big data equation?
Yeah, can you clarify what you mean by a leading partner? Because we know that the EMR is one of the big data components that are, coming in and pretty quickly and increasing. We do have a list of vendors. We'll make a note of that, and we don't have the list of vendors right now, but I'm sure if we look at our notes, we can, but we'll make a note and make sure that, that's included.
Okay, that's all the questions we have right now. Still a couple people who did raise their hand that haven't logged those questions, so I'll give you another minute if you'd like to do that. Okay, I guess that's going to be it for today. If anyone does have any questions, you can feel free to reply to the email that you got, the invitation to this webinar. That'll come to us, and we'll gladly, answer any follow-up questions that you might have. Other than that, I'd like to thank you for attending our webinar. We will make the video of this webinar available tomorrow, and you'll receive that in an email. Other than that, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.